Alex vs Świątek. Third round. Wimbledon. Let me be honest with you right from the start. There are tennis matches. And then there are moments that make you stop whatever you are doing and just watch. What is about to unfold on the grass at the All England Club is the second kind. Alex Eala vs Iga Świątek. Third round of Wimbledon 2026. The defending champion against the 21-year-old from Quezon City who has spent the last 3 weeks turning the grass court season into her personal highlight reel. If you have been following this story even loosely, you already feel the weight of it. If you are just catching up, buckle in, because the context here is just as compelling as the match itself. What Alex is carrying into this match before we get to the tactical breakdown, before we talk about serve patterns, return positions, or who controls the baseline, you need to understand what happened 48 hours ago and what it revealed about who Alex Eala actually is as a competitor. Her second-round win over Maja Jovic was not just a tennis result. It was a statement, delivered on the biggest stage she has ever stood on. Jovic was not a soft draw. She had just beaten Serena Williams in the first round, a returning legend the entire tennis world had been watching with a mixture of nostalgia and genuine curiosity. Jovic came through that match with momentum, confidence, and the kind of energy that comes from a major scalp. She stepped onto court against Alex fully believing she could go deep in this tournament. She won the first set 6-3. She broke in the opening game, dictated the pace early, and for a moment the match had a direction that did not look good for the Filipina. You could almost hear the narrative forming in real time. Too much pressure. Too big a stage. The fairy tale ends here. But that is not what happened. Alex reset. She did not panic. She did not force anything or try to do too much too quickly. She tightened her decision-making, reduced her errors, and started dictating the geometry of the court rather than reacting to Jovic's patterns. By the second set she was a completely different player, taking it 6-2 with a net game that completely disrupted Jovic's rhythm, mixing in serve and volley combinations that Jovic had no real answer for. And then the third set. A 6-0 bagel. In a Wimbledon second-round match. Against a player who had just eliminated Serena Williams. That scoreline is extraordinary, not just because of the numbers, but because of the psychological weight behind them. Last year in Eastbourne on these same British grass courts, Jovic beat Alex in a final that went to 10-12 in a deciding set tiebreak. Alex has spoken about how deeply that loss affected her, how she could not even bring herself to watch the highlights for months afterward. To come back a year later on a bigger stage and hand that same opponent a bagel in the deciding set is not luck or coincidence. It is the mark of a player who took a painful memory and turned it into fuel. The phrase on the visor there was another detail from that match worth mentioning, because it says something about who Alex is beyond the tennis. She walked onto court wearing a custom Nike visor with a phrase written in Tagalog, Hindi Natatumba, loosely translated as, once it grows, it cannot be stopped. She explained to the press that she carries parts of her culture onto the court intentionally. That every dream begins as a seed. That this phrase represents her journey, her country, and the entire arc of what she is trying to build. It is not a marketing slogan. It is a genuine expression of how she thinks about herself and what she is doing out here. And that kind of internal clarity is not something that can be coached. You either have it or you do not. Right now, Alex has it in abundance. She brings all of that into this match. The Birmingham title. The 3 top 10 wins in Berlin. 2 convincing victories at this Wimbledon, including a comeback from a set-down finished with a bagel to close it out. And now Iga Świątek, the defending champion, the woman who lifted this trophy 12 months ago without dropping a set in the final, winning the last set 6-0 in one of the most dominant Grand Slam final performances anyone had witnessed in years. Understanding where Świątek actually is right now, this is just as important as understanding where Alex is. So let us look at it honestly rather than defaulting to reputation. Świątek has redefined what dominance looks like in women's tennis over the past several years. Her clay court record is the stuff of legend, multiple Roland Garros titles, winning streaks that stopped feeling real, a level of control that made the rest of the tour feel like they were competing for second place. And then she answered the doubts about grass by winning Wimbledon in 2025, shortening her backswing, adjusting her footwork, learning to stay low and drive the ball flat through the surface. She proved she was not just a clay court specialist. She was a complete player. But 2026 has told a very different story. She has 11 losses already this season. 0 titles. 1 win against top 10 opponents against 5 defeats. She lost to Rybakina at the Australian Open. Svitolina beat her twice, in Indian Wells and in Rome. Drescher beat her in Stuttgart. She retired against Linette in Madrid, which is always a complicated result to read, but not the kind of thing that happens to a player who is fully settled physically and mentally. And then Roland Garros, her home, the place where she has been in a different tier from everyone else. Kostyuk beat her 7-5, 6-1 in the fourth round. That is not a close loss on a surface where she has historically had no weakness. That is a genuine upset by any reasonable measure. Her grass preparation at Bad Homburg did not go well either. Emma Navarro beat her in 3 sets, meaning she arrived at Wimbledon without the kind of sharp, uninterrupted build-up that usually sets champions up for dominance. Her first-round match here told a complicated story. She beat Taylor Townsend 6-1. 2-6, 6-3, which means she dominated the opening set, completely lost the thread in the second, and then had to fight her way back. She cried during her post-match press conference. She spoke openly about the season being difficult, about things not unfolding the way she had expected. For a player of her stature, that level of vulnerability in public is significant. It tells you the pressure is not theoretical anymore. It is real and present. Her second-round win looked cleaner, 6-1, 6-3, but the opponent's level explained a large portion of that scoreline. The question heading into this match is not whether Świątek is dangerous. She is always dangerous. The question is which version of her shows up when the difficulty rises beyond what she has faced in the first 2 rounds. And Alex represents a significant step up from either of those opponents. The head-to-head that actually matters here is what makes this matchup genuinely different from any other third-round match at this Wimbledon. Alex has already beaten her. Not in a practice session. Not in an exhibition. In a proper tour-level match, in Miami, 15 months ago, ranked 140th in the world. Alex defeated Świątek 6-2, 7-5. She did not steal it in a moment of chaos. She controlled large portions of that match by standing inside the baseline, taking Świątek's second serve early, cutting off angles, and refusing to let the Polish player settle into her preferred rally length. It was a tactically precise performance from a player the tennis world had essentially dismissed as a nice story. Then a month later in Madrid on clay, Świątek returned the favor with a clinical win of her own, showing she had studied what happened in Miami and made the right adjustments on a surface that heavily favored her game. The head-to-head sits at 1 apiece. Hard court to Alex. Clay to Świątek. And now grass, a surface neither of them has ever played against each other on. Why the surface favors Alex? That distinction sits at the heart of this tactical picture. Because grass does not distribute its advantages evenly between these two players. Świątek's primary weapon has always been the topspin-heavy forehand that pushes opponents behind the baseline and takes away preparation time. On clay, that kick is enormous. On grass, it is reduced. The ball stays lower through the bounce. The surface does not cooperate with heavy topspin the way clay does, and Świątek has to adapt by flattening her ball out more than she would naturally choose. That adjustment matters, because a flatter game requires her serve to function as a stabilizer, generating free points and short rallies, because she cannot rely on baseline dominance the same way she does on slower courts. Her serve this season has been inconsistent. Her first serve percentage has hovered around 63%, and across matches where she has faced genuine pressure in 2026, a pattern has emerged. She has been the player who breaks down when matches become tight and extended. 6 of her 11 losses came in situations where she needed to close a decisive set or hold a lead in the final stages. That is not random statistical fluctuation. That is a pattern. And it becomes directly relevant the moment Alex drags this match into a third set. Alex's game on this surface does almost the opposite. She hits flat and through the court rather than over it. She takes the ball early, which on grass, where the ball arrives faster and lower than on clay or hard courts, requires exceptional timing that she has clearly been sharpening all season. Her left-handed serve is a genuine problem for right-handed opponents. The natural slice bends into the body and stays low after the bounce, stealing time from the returner and making it difficult to step into an aggressive return position. Świątek's return game is the best in women's tennis on most surfaces. But on grass, where the ball arrives quicker and angles are more extreme, she has fewer opportunities to do what she normally does. Alex has also been coming forward more this grass season than at any previous point in her career. The serve and volley combinations against Jovic were not accidental. They were tactical choices she committed to because she understood they would disrupt her opponent's comfort, especially against a player who is most dangerous when rallies are controlled from the baseline and stretched into extended exchanges. That net presence becomes a major disruptive factor. Take away the baseline rhythm and you take away the environment Świątek thrives in. The honest counterargument that said, handing this match to Alex on paper would be just as wrong as dismissing her entirely. Świątek has won 6 Grand Slam titles. She has stood in the biggest moments this sport offers and found ways through them. Even in a difficult 2026, she has shown she can still raise her level when it matters most. Before Kostyuk beat her at Roland Garros, she had beaten Osaka and Pavlik to reach that stage. Before Svitolina beat her in Rome, she had put together 4 convincing wins in earlier rounds. The inconsistency that has defined her season cuts both ways. She can fade at unexpected moments, but she can also suddenly find her absolute best tennis in the middle of a match that looks like it is slipping away. Alex, on the other hand, has never been this deep at a Grand Slam before. This third-round match is uncharted territory. There is no playbook for how a 21-year-old handles the psychological weight of facing the defending champion at Wimbledon on a show court with a stadium full of Filipino fans making a sound these courts have never heard before, while the entire tennis world watches because the story is impossible to ignore. Pressure at this level is not theoretical. It is physical. It shows up in the hands. It tightens the grip. It changes the toss. It affects decision-making on balls that arrive in half a second. Świątek has navigated that kind of pressure and survived it repeatedly. Alex is experiencing it for the first time, and doing so against one of the best players the sport has seen in the last decade. The 3 things to watch: there are specific moments in this match that will tell you very quickly which direction it is heading. The first is Alex's return position. In Miami, she stepped inside the baseline to attack Świątek's second serve, cutting off angles and compressing recovery time. If she does the same thing on grass, where the ball comes through faster and the margin for timing is even smaller, it signals that her confidence and timing are exactly where they need to be. If she backs off the baseline instead, it suggests the occasion is pulling her toward caution. And caution against this opponent is rarely a winning strategy. The second is Świątek's forehand depth in the opening games. When she is fully in rhythm on this surface, that forehand lands deep, just inside the baseline, and pins opponents back immediately. When something is off, it lands shorter. Against a player like Alex, who thrives on stepping in and taking time away, those shorter balls become invitations rather than weapons. The difference of 3 or 4 feet in landing depth is not a minor detail in this matchup. It is potentially the difference between Świątek dictating terms and Alex taking over rallies entirely. The third thing to watch is double faults and second serve performance under pressure, particularly in the second and third sets if this goes the distance. Świątek has been vulnerable on serve in tight moments throughout 2026. Alex will be hunting second serves aggressively from the very first return game. If she can apply consistent pressure on service games, forcing even a small number of double faults at critical junctures, the scoreboard begins to shift in ways that compound over time. The crowd factor, do not dismiss it as background detail. It is a real factor in this match. The Filipino diaspora in the United Kingdom has been transforming Alex's matches throughout this tournament into something the All England club is simply not accustomed to hosting. Wimbledon has a culture: quiet, measured, respectful, polite applause between points, the occasional gasp. That is the tradition. What has been happening during Alex's matches is categorically different. Flags. Chanting. A collective noise that builds through a rally and peaks at the winning shot. That creates a pressure cooker atmosphere that subtly but cumulatively disrupts an opponent's concentration over the course of a match. If Alex breaks early and gets the crowd fully engaged in the first set, the psychological environment for Świątek becomes meaningfully more difficult. Champions have been rattled by crowd energy before. And Świątek has shown this season that her mental equilibrium is not quite where it was when she was at her absolute peak. The bottom line, what all of this analysis ultimately points to, is a match that is genuinely open in a way the rankings and seedings do not fully capture. Alex can win this. That is not an optimistic statement built on national pride or narrative convenience. It is grounded in specific, observable evidence. She has beaten Świątek in a competitive match before. She is in the form of her career at the exact moment Świątek is going through the most inconsistent season of her professional life. The surface amplifies Alex's strengths and compresses Świątek's advantages in ways that do not apply on the courts where the Polish player has been historically untouchable. This is not a mismatch dressed up as a contest. This is a match. A real one. And it starts right now.